October 3rd. The chosen text from Psalms 119, verses 165. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. Explanation. Our request should be increasingly for grace and wisdom and the fruits of the Spirit and opportunities for serving the Lord and the brethren, and for growing more and more into the likeness of God's dear Son. Under these conditions, who can doubt that the promised peace of God beyond all understanding would guard such hearts and their thoughts? This peace would of itself dispel one of the great evils that afflicts the hearts of many. Selfishness and ambition would find little room in a heart so filled. Divine peace can dwell in our hearts and rule in them, so as to keep out the worry and the turmoil of the world. Even when we are surrounded by these disadvantageous conditions, even when the adversary himself is besting us through deceived agents. Reprint number 3306. Amen.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a really fascinating ancient text, looking at a kind of formula it lays out for, well, deep inner peace and resilience. We're drawing from Psalm 119, verse 165 specifically, makes this huge promise. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them.
Yeah, it's that second part, nothing shall offend them, that really jumps out. I mean, that sounds like total psychological armor, doesn't it?
It really does.
But what's interesting is how the source material immediately says, okay, this peace of God beyond all understanding, it's not just handed out. It comes from meeting some very specific conditions.
Right, okay, so it's conditional. Let's unpack that formula then.
Yeah.
If we want this kind of unshakable peace, what are the ingredients? What should we actually be asking for or aiming at?
Well, the sources say we need a fundamental shift in focus, a real shift. Our request should increasingly be for grace and for wisdom.
Grace and wisdom.
Yeah, and it's also about actively trying to cultivate those qualities the text calls the fruits of the Spirit. You know, patience, kindness, real self-control, things you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, it also involves actively looking for opportunities to serve, serving the Lord, serving others.
Okay, so if we sort of strip away some of the language there,
Yeah.
it sounds like focusing your life very intentionally on maybe competence, humility, and service actually builds its own kind of psychological defense.
That's a good way to put it.
But hang on, that sounds like, well, hard work. Is it just this sudden leap, or did the sources talk about steps?
Oh, it's definitely presented as a process, constant, incremental. And the final condition sort of ties it all together, growing more and more into the likeness of God's dear Son.
Which implies?
Becoming more selfless, basically. Less driven by ego, less self-centered. And the text implies, you know, if you're truly focused there on wisdom, on service, well, who could doubt that the peace promised would naturally follow? It would guard your heart, your thoughts.
How?
Because you've kind of removed the fuel for inner conflict, right? The things that usually disturb us.
That makes sense. And that actually leads nicely into the next part.
Mm-hmm.
How this peace functions. It's not passive, is it? The sources describe it almost like an active defense system.
Exactly. It actively works to dispel one of the great evils that afflict the hearts of many.
Okay, so what's the specific great evil it pushes out?
Selfishness and ambition. That's the core insight, I think.
Selfishness and ambition. Interesting.
Yeah, think about it. Ambition, selfishness, they demand control, they crave recognition, they expect external rewards. It's the total opposite of that formula we just talked about. Service, humility, grace.
Right.
So the text basically guarantees that those self-serving urges, well, they'd find little room in a heart that's guarded by this kind of divine peace.
So it sounds like the biggest threat to our own peace isn't actually what's happening outside us, but maybe our own ego trying to run the show.
Right.
That feels a bit counterintuitive sometimes.
It often does. We focus so much on external shields, but the source suggests the primary battle is internal.
Okay.
And because this piece deals with that internal enemy first, it then becomes a really powerful external defense, too.
How does that work?
Well, this piece can genuinely dwell in and rule the heart keeping out the worry and turmoil of the world, even if you're surrounded by, really disadvantageous conditions, really tough situations.
Wow. So the resilience is pretty remarkable then. This peace can hold ruling your thoughts, even when maybe people around you are actively causing trouble, trying to stir things up.
That's what the text suggests, even when the adversary is, quote, besetting us through deceived agents. Your internal state can remain separate from the external chaos.
If you've met those initial conditions.
Exactly. It all hinges on that foundation.
So for you listening, it seems like we've got this clear two-part benefit from following this formula. First, an inner shield against those destructive forces of selfishness and ambition. And second, a kind of outer resilience, protection against the world's chaos and sometimes the people bringing it.
Right. So given that this active pursuit, this focus on wisdom and service is the absolute foundation for this kind of deep peace, maybe here's something to think about. If internal ambition, that need for control, really is the biggest threat to your own psychological peace, what immediate pursuit, maybe even a small one, are you willing to let go of? Or perhaps reframe, starting today, to make sure your heart stays guarded?